Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Henry Stewart Events, I would like to welcome you to the Festival of Creative Operations 2022. We have an action-packed agenda for you today. So to kick things off, please welcome our conference chair, Kevin Brugato. Kevin, over to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Festival of Creative Operations 2022. A big thank you to all attendees from across the globe for this bumper celebration of all things creative, design, and photo studio ops. My name is Kevin Brugato, and I'm the head of marketing technology at Jefferies, and today I will be your chair. First and foremost, I hope that everyone is staying safe and doing well. We've got a jam-packed lineup for you today, so we're going to move quickly throughout the event. While virtual events may not have the personal touch of on-site conferences, they do have their advantages. One being you could relax in the comfort of your own space and not have to worry about the logistics of taking planes, trains, or automobiles. When thinking about my opening remarks for today, I couldn't help to reflect back on our last festival, which was just about 2 years ago to the day. The pandemic proved that flexibility can be a natural part of how teams operate, which got me really to thinking about just how far we've evolved with remote work. Not only are we able to successfully work remotely, but also the importance of being able to support our creative teams that are remote, along with all the great work they produce. This is critical for success. A good example of this is how technology has evolved over the last few years to address the challenges brought to us by video production. With the right tools and the right talent, you can now support the end-to-end process remotely. No longer must we send large film crews to physical locations only to generate huge files that are cumbersome to manage. Technology today allows for devices like smartphones and cameras to be controlled remotely, and you could adjust settings like aperture, brightness, audio levels, and others, as well as be able to edit the files all in the cloud. It's definitely a game changer for sure. The hybrid environment is here for good, and folks dialing in today should think about how we could best support these new and very different ways of working. Okay, let's get things started with a few housekeeping items. To create a fully immersive experience today and to make you feel as if you're attending the conference in person, we're leveraging a technology platform called Hublio. We will be here living in it for the next few hours, so to ensure a successful experience, please take a moment to familiarize yourself with the tool and how to navigate the interface. You can find all the live sessions in the Agenda tab. And remember, your registration includes access to the co-located Design Operations Symposium and Photo Studio Operations Forum too. During the sessions, we encourage you to chat with fellow attendees and make the most out of the expert lineup by submitting your questions via the Q&A panel that's on the right side of your screen. You could also use the chat tab. I'm sorry, my screens just went blank. You could also use the chat tab and use the hashtag Festival Creative Operations on socials to get the conversation going. Plus, be sure to check out the Lounge tab throughout the event for real-time networking with industry peers and competitions tab to win some great prizes. And let's not forget our vendors. A very big thank you for supporting the events. Visit them throughout the conference via the exhibition tab to learn more. Last but not least, you will find yourself lost. Don't sweat it. We're here to help you find your way back. On the main page, there is a chat bot on the bottom of your screen, which is a quick way to get help from the Henry Stewart team. Now, on with the show. I'm delighted to introduce our keynote speaker, Stephanie Nelson from the Hilton, who will be taking us through the evolution of an in-house creative team. Over to you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Kevin. Hold on 1 second while I share my screen. All right, hoping that worked. Thank you again, everyone, and Kevin for that great introduction. Thanks everyone for being here today. I'm excited to be with you, even if it's just virtually. This is my first time speaking at a Henry Stewart event, and I'm honored to be a part of it. During our 30 minutes today, I want to talk about something many, if not all of you, can most likely relate to, evolving the in-house creative model. What I mean by that is moving from pure production work to a more integrated creative team that not only helps drive and evaluate creative strategy, but is the go-to for creative resourcing. But before we dive into all of that, let me quickly introduce myself. As Kevin mentioned, I'm the Director of Creative Operations and Account Management for Hilton's in-house creative team. I've been with Hilton for just about 5 years in a various number of roles. Previous to my time at Hilton, I worked with a few federal government agencies as an executive speechwriter and strategic communications and creative advisor. I like to say that my passion lies in the intersection of strategy, process, and creative, which is how on an ideal day, I would describe my role. What I mean, one second, just trying to advance, thanks. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to start with a short preview of the current landscape and then dive into why we should look at evolving our models to operate at the creative strategy level and how to overcome some common challenges of getting there. And then we should have some time to open up the discussion for a bit of Q&A at the end. Please feel free to pop in any questions or thoughts you have throughout this presentation in the chat box that Kevin mentioned as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing and discussing those at the end. So to ground ourselves, let me start with a quick overview of Hilton's in-house team structure. Like many companies coming out of the pandemic, we're going through a lot of change. I think change is probably the most used word that we've heard over the past year. Couple that with launching a new marketing platform, and you've got a multitude of challenges and opportunities to meet. Our team, which we call Hilton's Creative Studio, is global. The majority sits in the US and is comprised of design, copy, operations, production, account management, and leadership teams. In total, we have just about over 60 people supporting the studio, a mix of full-time team members and full-time contractors. I lead our operations, production, and account management teams, as well as a small but growing international team located in Glasgow, Scotland, that supports our APAC and EMEA partners and marketing teams. On the operations side, we have about 16 members. Our account team is growing with about 13 people total. And of course, we do still have a small but mighty production level team ran by about 4 people and a few contractors. And we also have contractors, full-time contractors that support each of our focus areas. Our executive creative director leads our design and copy teams. And currently the studio has 3 full-time associate creative directors, 6 art directors, and about 16 designers and 7 copywriters. I will say the one constant that we've had in the past year has been change, like I said earlier. Change to meet the volume of work, to meet our new vision, and plan for the future. So while today this overview that I just gave you is true, I guarantee you if you asked me to give it next week, it would be out of date. Of course, when I took on my role of Director of Creative Operations and Account Management for our team, this looked very different from what it looks like today. To help my team better understand the current landscape of the in-house creative industry and to see how we measured up, one of the first things I did when I accepted this role was dig into some of the research. This was especially important because our executive creative director, who was also fairly new to the team, had a very specific vision to position our team as the trusted creative experts within Hilton, not just the doers, but also the thinkers. And recently, I dove back into some of that research, and I'd like to share some of those findings with you. According to a report and survey conducted by Litho this year, 57% of creative marketing professionals indicated their team is functioning largely as an in-house creative agency. According to the survey, this meant that they are regularly involved in strategy and original concepting, a 14% increase from the previous 12 months. 32% said that their in-house agency is still evolving, yet mostly focused on those tactical production level projects with a little bit of strategic work sprinkled in there. And that trend is definitely on the rise. Our Hilton studio team probably would have fallen into the latter bucket if asked this time last year. However, we've made significant progress towards becoming what we call the creative heartbeat of Hilton since then, taking a more holistic creative role when it comes to helping our marketing partners bring creative visions to life and supporting our marketing goals. Apologize, some of my notes got messed up. There we go. But what's the benefit of moving into a more strategic creative team versus only tackling production work? Obviously, this can vary for each team and company, but there are a few value-added benefits of operating this way. First, who better to brainstorm and execute campaigns and projects and creative than people who already intimately know your brand's values, your value proposition, and your goals. Keeping it in-house can often lead to a more aligned creative output because of inherent increased control. Second, the balance of power is more equal. When an in-house creative team serves in a more advisory oversight role, the quality of creative improves. That's because your team is able to advocate for the creative in ways that external agencies cannot, just due to access and proximity. Doors and conversations are more open to an in-house team. You also see better consistency. As the owners of guidelines and contributors to the strategy, an in-house team has a larger stake in making sure creative shows up correctly across teams and channels. And just from a logistical standpoint, it's efficient and more cost-effective. Because it's kept in-house, the pre-work becomes a lot easier. No need to bring an agency up to speed to connect the dots or spend time and money on onboarding external freelancers or agencies, which we all know can be very time-consuming. Similarly, you're more likely to go through less rounds of review and achieve what you set out to accomplish a lot quicker. So while there are many worthwhile benefits to making this shift, there are also many ways you can organize your team to do this. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. And in my experience, it always takes time, refinement, and a comfortability with ambiguity and change. One way we have found to be successful at Hilton is by testing and implementing the art director model. Coming out of the pandemic, and as travel started to pick up immensely, there was an immediate need to build back our creative team and capabilities. This was an opportunity to redefine what space our team would own within our marketing team. Would we go back to being a chargeback productions shop, or would we evolve in a way that was an integral part of our marketing capabilities and strategy? Ultimately, we started down the latter path, which is why we're here today. Let me share a little bit about our experience and how we got there, and hopefully you'll find something useful to take away. First, we removed the chargeback model completely and kept all costs in-house unless we were partnering with an external agency, which obviously we find useful in many cases. Then we slowly began adding to our design and account teams and implemented what we called the art director model. At the beginning of this year, we were still largely handling production level projects from across the business, but we knew we had to up our creative skills and invest in the right talent to help us on this journey. This is how we're currently set up, as you can see on the screen, with the art director model. Ideally, each business unit that we support, or our partners, as we like to call them internally, has a dedicated team that consists of an associate creative director, ACD, an art director, a number of designers, and a team of an account lead and a number of project managers. Our ops and copy teams support the entire team and all of our partners. We've tested a few different variations of this, but we're finding the most success in this current version, but we'll continue to iterate as we find more things and as our business evolves. But let's go back to the beginning of this story. Just as we were in the thick of trying to get this model right at the beginning of the year, it was announced that we would be creating and launching a new marketing platform, Hilton for the Stay. You might have seen some of our TVCs over the past few months, along with social and out-of-home and digital banners and creative. The goal was to be different, distinctly Hilton in our new creative, something that would endure, not just the flash in the pan campaign, but something with legs, something never done before within the hospitality industry. We saw that as our opening, our opportunity to start showing up in a way that we had envisioned as the creative heartbeat of Hilton. I want to acknowledge that having leadership buy-in on this was key. Senior leaders within marketing already had confidence in our leadership team, so that went a really long way. We were able to position our team to be involved in the creative planning process from the very beginning. It was a new way of working for the entire marketing team, not just our Hilton Studio team. We were partnering with a well-established agency to shape this groundbreaking platform and campaign, and our team advocated to have a voice in the room. Our rationale was sound. We knew Hilton's personality, We knew its voice and we knew its ambitions. We just wanted to help make this great. And slowly the door opened, just a crack at first. And then after we showed value, it opened a little wider until our ECD and our ACDs were involved in almost every creative decision that went into shaping the platform. It was the start of a true thought partnership and our journey to be involved in creative strategy. Of course, we also executed on the design and some of the lower level production work that you see here, but that was the fun part because we had already been a part of this entire process. It energized and motivated our teams because they felt ownership. And since then, we've made inroads with other partners across the business too. This was just our grand opening. Now, when we talk with partners, we explain that we strive to be their go-to for creative resourcing. That could mean taking a project or creative opportunity completely in-house, or recommending that we partner with one of our many trusted agencies or freelancers. Either way, we'll help them accomplish their creative vision. It's still a work in progress, and let's not kid ourselves, challenging at times. We face the same issues many in-house creative teams do, and probably the same issues you guys do on a daily basis. According to Litho, 64% of creative teams said stakeholders still struggle to completely understand the value proposition of internal creative teams. And that's very true still at Hilton. They're also likely not to follow your team's established creative process, which if you're anything like my team, it's always changing just ever so slightly. This can lead to burnout as unclear requests and unexpected changes create swirl and lost time, even though deadlines are already always tight. It can also be hard to ensure you have the proper level of in-house resources to support this kind of model. Forecasting work is a difficult and often very ambiguous exercise, as I'm sure many of you can relate to. That's why we rely on the art director model. It can scale up or down depending on the year. By ensuring each of our art directors can also design, we stay flexible for those smaller years. And of course, we have a deep bench of freelancers and creative agencies we can rely on when we need to, but with strong oversight from our team. So, what are some of the other things we can do to overcome these seemingly massive challenges? Let's wrap it up with a quick greatest hits list. First and most important, evolve with your business. Understand where your business is right now and where it's going. Know how it shifts and the economics of it. Then structure your team and work around that business strategy. Second, have a clear vision for your team and communicate it loudly and often. Right now, we're doing a series of what we're calling road shows to educate our partners on what we do and how we do it. At Hilton, we have a lot of new people right now, so it's something we'll continue to do over and over again to make sure everybody is aligned and on the same page. Third, adapt, adapt, adapt. Hire people who are good at change, who thrive in that type of environment and make it a part of your culture. Flexibility is key in this type of environment. Fourth, communicate your cost model and its benefits with your partners. Whether you're a chargeback or a cost center, understand your own budget, your stakeholders' budget, and your capacity. Fifth, be able to sell your work. Make sure you have top-notch presentation skills to provide business rationale behind your creative. Sixth, seek regular feedback. Push your partners to provide value-added insights, not just praise. Really encourage them to be open so they can help you be better. Seventh, seek to always strengthen your briefs and be a part of that evolving process. Eighth, learn from others, network, keep attending events like these, and learn more about other operating models. 9, being able to demonstrate cost savings benefits to your stakeholders is great, but it's only one part of the story. Show what else your team contributes that external agencies just cannot provide to make a full story and a full argument around why you should evolve. And last, fail forward, take risks, up the percentage of crazy you allow for in your creative, and learn from your mistakes and iterate. So while each team is on its own unique journey, I hope you found something useful to take away from Hilton's experience and how we're currently evolving. We're not done yet. We're just at the very, very start of this. But know again, there is no one right way to do this. You have to figure out what works best for your team, your business, and the opportunities ahead for you. Thanks again for the opportunity to speak with you all today. It's been a really fun experience. And now I think we have some time for Q&A, so I will turn it back over to Kevin.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Great job. It's funny, every time I hear these presentations on in-house models, and maybe because we're headed into the postseason and baseball's on my mind, but it reminds me of the Field of Dreams movie, but the quote, build it and they will come, because it's another success story. So not to waste time, but we do have some questions burning up the Q&A charts. So first one comes from Trisha. She asks, fewer rounds of revisions in theory, but we find because we are in-house, the impression is we don't have the same control around limiting the number of edits. How do you address this?
Yeah, so it's hard because you are in-house and expectations are a little bit higher on making sure that you act on every edit that comes in from an internal partner. I think this is where those really good presentation skills and, for argument's sake, negotiating skills come into play. When you have someone on your team, an art director or an associate creative director, who can really speak to the creative and help your partners understand why certain creative decisions were made and the rationale behind them, I think that can help connect the dots for our internal partners a little bit better. And you can have those open conversations with your internal partners in a way that external agencies can't, because they don't have that familiarity with the work. They don't know your partners on a day in and day out basis because they don't work within your space. So being able to cultivate those relationships and those having those trusted conversations, I think will get you there. It takes time.
Awesome. Okay, the next question comes from Cynthia, and the question is there a risk of stagnation or groupthink that could impact an exclusively in-house team? And how do you address this?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I mean, I think we see it in marketing teams, not just creative teams. You see it within larger marketing teams all the time. And I think the antidote to that is by making sure that you're not always heads down into your own work, that you lift up and you bring in other agencies at the right moments. You bring in other voices, external voices, but with an understanding that ultimately you do make those decisions, those creative decisions, and your team and your marketing team controls those. But yes, teams that look inward and that are insular definitely risk, that group think. So it's still good to have a mix. Like I talked about, at Hilton, we don't take everything, every project in-house. There are many instances where we intake a project or an opportunity to brainstorm on an idea. And ultimately we recommend, hey, we're not the experts in this particular area. Let's partner with one of our agencies that we know are experts in this area, and let's come together to really bring this to life. So I don't think that there's necessarily a risk if you make it a priority to have a deep bench of those external creative agencies that you might not specialize in. But yeah, it's definitely something that happens quite often.
Awesome. The next question actually speaks to that. What is the role of the external creative production agency in your organization?
Yeah, so we have a few that we work with quite frequently, a few trusted ones that we've worked with even before the pandemic, and they know Hilton very well. They know our work streams very well, and we've brought on a few others since then to support our current model. And they're very ingrained in our work. Like I mentioned, we do have a small but mighty production team in-house at Hilton. But I would say the vast majority of our production work is handled by our external production agencies with oversight from us. Now, there's certain levels of work when you get into on-property creative. Hilton is huge. We have over 7,000 properties worldwide. So we can't handle every single piece of creative that comes through. So our production agencies handle that volume of work. Anything that's above on property, so enterprise-wide, is something that our in-house production team would work on. So we kind of deviate the work that way and try to divide and conquer.
Awesome. Next question is about your content team. Was your content team always part of the studio team? Did you fold those roles into the new art director model?
Yeah, so we do have a content team. We have actually two content teams. So we have the creative content team that sits within the studio, and then our broader marketing content team that does not sit within the studio, but we partner with very, very closely. We're still trying to tweak that model and figure out exactly what works best, because as you know, the appetite for content is never satisfied. So I feel like it's an evolving process, but we do have a team that is dedicated to content and social, and it is supported exactly like the art director model that I showed you. We have an associate creative director, one art director, and multiple designers, and then an AM lead and project managers that support that content creation role.
Awesome. Along these lines, do you have a production design team? If so, does their leader report up through creative operations, or do they have their own director?
Yes, so we do have a production design team, and they do report up through operations. They report up through me. We've had those conversations before. Where does this live? What makes most sense? And we've decided to keep it within operations now. However, I do see a future where if we evolved it and grew the team a little bit more, where it would make sense for it to report up into its own director, especially on the international front as well, because we do have a small production design team, like I mentioned, in Glasgow as well. They're not connected necessarily, they're separate, and they both report up through me. But as it stands right now, that's kind of how we're structured. I do see a future where we evolve that.
Awesome. Do you have enough energy to do one or two more?
Yeah, whatever you guys got.
Do you keep digital asset management, content, and marketing tools in-house?
We do and we don't. So it really depends. There are a few things that are in-house. There are a few other things that we outsource. So we have a few different DAMs at Hilton. We do have one that is in-house, and we call it Market. And then we have a few other that are external as well, that our digital asset management team, which doesn't sit within the studio, manages. I actually believe that the director of that team was just in New York on a panel with you guys talking about that a few weeks ago. So yeah, we keep them separate. And I'll be honest, our studio team doesn't interact a whole lot with our DAM software. We actually use our production agency, our external production agency that we've been working with for a really long time. They manage all of the uploading and keeping all of that stuff nice and tidy for us. What we do manage internally is, obviously to house all of our creative as it's going through the different rounds of revisions. We just switched from Dropbox to SharePoint, and we're going through a little bit of I wouldn't say a tough time, but we're going through some growing pains with transitioning to SharePoint. But for the most part, it's working well. We also use Airtable for our project management software and just tracking. And that's something that's marketing wide. So it's not just the studio, which has been a really good experience, but it's also just been implemented this year. So we're still trying to figure out all the different capabilities, but we've really enjoyed it so far.
Staying with technology, how do you use a project management software to track your projects? And if so, how do you get the creatives to use it and buy in?
Yeah, so like I said, we are using Airtable. Last year, we were using Trello. So to be honest, our team didn't have the best experience with Trello, especially being a global team. There were some inconsistencies there. So they were really excited to switch to Airtable. How it's benefited us, like I mentioned, our marketing team across the entire organization uses it. So as they identify a project, whether it's creative or something else, they put it into their marketing database or their team's database, and they can tag our creative studio team if we have any type of role within it. So we're able to forecast a little bit that way, kind of see what's coming up, and then we can go in and prioritize based off of that for our planning. And then of course we have an intake form for any type of project or creative ideas that need to be executed on, and that feeds directly into Airtable. Our account managers are Airtable enthusiasts, and they are constantly beating the drum, put it in Airtable, put it in Airtable. And so I think we haven't seen an issue adopting it, just because it's the one source of truth for our entire team. And our creatives know that their work isn't going to be moved to the next round by our account leads if they don't put it in Airtable. We also use Zyflow for our proofing process as well. And Zyflow, we've found a way to integrate Airtable and Zyflow so we can see where each project is in the process. So it's just really easy for our entire team to use and to have visibility. So buy-in really hasn't been much of an issue for us.
Awesome, good to hear. One last question, then we'll let you off the hook.
Yeah.
Shelley would like to know, how do we get our internal clients to give us real project due dates? Typically, rush jobs really are in a rush, but they want to be sure theirs gets to the front of the queue. So
it's always a struggle, I'll tell you, those arbitrary dates. I think that for our team, our account leads know their partners, their internal partners so well that they're able to really push back on some of those dates if they have a feeling that it's a little bit arbitrary. And that's kind of one of the benefits of working within this art director model, is you have your account managers or your account leads that have these really good working relationships with your internal partners, because that's who they're dedicated to supporting and working. So they get to know their rhythms, they get to know their habits and their quirks a little bit. It takes time to develop those relationships and to develop that contextual knowledge to know when you can push back on that. But that's one thing that I really like about evolving into this new model that we have at Hilton, because it's not it's not one person, me as the director of creative ops or our ECD, that has to know all of our partners and make those calls. We distribute that responsibility and those relationship strengthening opportunities across the team. So you're really able to get a good sense of the rhythm of work, what their cycles look like, how you can push back if you know you have a little bit of wiggle room here or there, but it's definitely not a quick overnight fix. It's something that you have to work at.
got it. Well, I think we said it all. I mean, there are still questions out there, and I encourage some of the attendees to find you on the platform or connect with you on LinkedIn, or just keep the conversation going. Great job. If we had audio on for the attendees, I'm sure there'd be a round of applause now. So I'll give you the golf clap, and thank you so much for telling us about the evolution of in-house creative teams.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks, everybody. I hope to see you guys later today in some of the other sessions.
Awesome.
All
Okay,
right.
Up next, join Peacock TV to learn about building and scaling winning teams. Plus, don't forget to use hashtag Festival of Creative Ops on socials, and check out the community feed to let other attendees know that you are online. Hope to see you soon. Bye.